Napoleon's army trudged slowly across Russia's immense spaces.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 unforeseen true-life twists that redefined history.
Throughout May and June, intelligence reports gave warning after warning of imminent German attack.
Number 20, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Mid-October 1962, one photograph nearly marked the end of the world.
Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island.
With a single snapshot, U.S. spy planes exposed Soviet nuclear missiles hidden in Cuba, just 90 miles from Florida. In a heartbeat, the Cold War went from silent tension to a 13-day countdown to nuclear doom. President Kennedy ordered a naval blockade, and Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev refused to back down. Battleships, bombers, and fingers hovered over launch buttons while the whole planet held its breath. Then, plot twist, both leaders had a rethink, pivoting from proxy wars to nuclear prudence with secret deals.
Here at Homestead, there were over 200 jet fighters, fueled up and loaded with rockets, napalm, bombs, and cannon ammunition.
America pulled missiles from Turkey, and the Soviets backed off Cuba. And just like that, a photograph that nearly sparked the apocalypse ended in quiet diplomacy, reshaping how superpowers communicate, trust, and survive.
Thank you and good night.
Number 19, the COVID-19 pandemic. If you were to ask anyone where they were when COVID-19 was declared a pandemic, they will likely have an instantaneous reply.
Pandemic is not a word to use lightly or carelessly.
Who would have thought that a viral respiratory tract infection could turn 2020 into arguably the most impactful year in modern history, with such a sweeping and everlasting impact across the globe? But one did. COVID-19 claimed over 3 million lives in 2020 alone, and caused over 7 million confirmed deaths total as of 2025.
To give you a sense of just how large a COVID death toll is, 1 million is double the population of the entire city of Atlanta. And guys, for more context, the 1918 flu pandemic killed about 675,000 people in the U.S., making COVID the deadliest pandemic in American history.
Aside from the obvious impact of the disease, society at large nearly transformed overnight. As a result of the lockdown, jobs were either lost or were forced to shift to remote models with little preparation. In addition, 2020 saw the most significant global recession in history since the Great Depression. The pandemic personally affected all of us in some way, either through illness, loss, or the adjustment to the new normal that was created in its wake.
Some of the things that worry us are what happens when there's a next large outbreak in a skilled nursing facility, the next time a susceptible population gets hit within a tight community.
Number 18, the atomic bomb that didn't detonate. What a nightmare this could have been. January 1961, Cold War tensions sky high, and a U.S. B-2 bomber broke apart mid-air over Goldsboro, North Carolina.
The airplane disintegrated in mid-air.
But I thought I was going to die by myself.
On board, 2 hydrogen bombs, each packing over 200 times the power of Hiroshima. One parachutes gently down into a farm field, while the other slams into a swamp. Officials called it a safe accident to calm nerves. But years later, declassified files told a different story. Turns out, one bomb went through 6 of the 7 arming steps. Only one electrical safety switch kept it from turning half of Carolina into ash.
They were desperately looking for the bomb, particularly the switch that would tell them if it were on armed or safe.
After that scare, America overhauled its nukes with better systems, safety protocols, and fewer flights. Because who relies on luck twice? The U.S. was really one spark away from doomsday.
They never did find the uranium portion of that bomb, and to this day it remains 180 feet below this ground.
Number 17, Hitler's art school rejection. It's wild to think how a rejection letter might have flipped the course of history. Back in 1907, young Adolf Hitler wasn't dreaming of world domination. He just wanted to be an artist.
Hitler's watercolors are so controversial they're not on public display, but stored securely in the museum's basement.
Twice he applied to the Academy of Fine Arts Vienna, and twice they rejected him. The board said he was unfit for painting and suggested architecture instead, but he lacked the academic credentials. Broke, crushed, and humiliated, Hitler drifted through Vienna's streets, his rejection curdling into obsession and anger towards the system.
For Hitler, these views became obsession.
That moment didn't just derail his life, it rewrote global history. Many years later, instead of painting landscapes, he painted chaos across Europe. It really is a terrifying twist. A closed door on young Hitler's ambition unleashed one of the world's darkest nightmares.
Munich, 1914, A. Hitler.
Number 16, the Russian Revolution. Talk about a domino effect. Sometimes history's biggest shocks start small.
Russia was definitely the most repressive major state in Europe at the turn of the century.
In February 1917, it was just another bitter winter in Petrograd. People starving, exhausted, and done with war. A few women hit the streets demanding bread and peace. Not one, not even Tsar Nicholas II imagined it would escalate. But then came the twist. Instead of stopping the protests, the soldiers joined the crowd. Even the Tsar's generals turned their backs, and within days, the Romanovs' 300-year reign ended.
The basement room was sealed, and Yakov Yurovsky, their chief executioner, informed them they would be executed.
Out of that chaos rose Lenin and the Bolsheviks in November, ushering in a brand new country built on communism. What began as a hunger protest sparked a revolution that redrew the 20th century. If only the Tsar had seen it coming, he might have filled the rumbling stomachs. Number 15, Constantine's conversion to Christianity. After centuries of Christians being hunted across the Roman Empire, what happened in 312 CE still feels almost unbelievable.
Constantine's father, Constantius, was a pagan who carried out orders to persecute Christians, including destroying churches and forcing Christians into exile.
Constantine, a battle-hardened general, was gearing up for the Battle of the Milvian Bridge when the unexpected happened. Legend says he looked to the sky and saw a cross of light with a revelation. He marked the Chi Rho on his soldiers' shields, and the next day, crushed Maxentius's army in the Tiber. That one battle flipped the script, and by 313 CE, the Edict of Milan made Christianity legal.
The sign of the cross. I will not force you, any of you, to accept it as your faith. Only those must stay at my side who will fight for the right of every man to live in freedom, without tyranny, intolerance, or persecution.
Pagan temples began to close, bishops gained power, and the empire tilted toward a new faith. A pagan warlord ended the persecution of Christians? That's the twist. Emperor Constantine himself was later baptized on his deathbed.
I know now that I am in the true sense blessed, that now I have been shown worthy of immortal life, that now I receive divine light.
Number 14, the attack on Pearl Harbor. They say you should never wake a sleeping giant, and Japan probably should have listened. On December 7, 1941, calm skies over Pearl Harbor, Hawaii erupted as 353 Japanese aircraft screamed down from the clouds.
The whole side of Battleship Row, clear down to the Arizona, is covered with flames. The people in the water, swimming, trying to get out.
Within 2 hours, 8 battleships were hit, the USS Arizona exploded, and over 2,400 Americans were killed. Japan's goal was simple: damage the U.S. Pacific Fleet before it could fight back. But by sheer luck, the American carriers, the real targets, weren't even there. Crazy twist, right? Instead of immobilizing the U.S., Japan's ambush ignited its wrath. The next day, President Roosevelt delivered his Day of Infamy speech.
The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked.
Overnight, isolation turned into outrage, and a divided America united, ready to strike back, defeat Japan's empire, and change the course of history.
They are my heroes, and I will tell their stories as long as I live.
Number 13, the sinking of the Titanic. Famously called the unsinkable ship, a floating fortress of steel and luxury, the RMS Titanic set sail in 1912 as the crown jewel of human engineering. Power, pride, and 16 watertight compartments.
She was hailed as the most luxurious steamship in the world. Her decks were polished teakwood, her chefs the finest on the continent.
Everyone basically thought it could survive anything short of the apocalypse, but fate had other plans. On a calm April night, as the ship sailed through the North Atlantic, an iceberg loomed out of the darkness, ripping through its hull. A few moments later, 6 of the ship's watertight compartments were torn apart. Within hours, the so-called fortress slipped beneath the Atlantic, taking some 1,500 lives with it.
There was no impact as such. It was just like jamming your brakes on a car. And that was that. She stopped.
Who would have thought a chunk of ice could tear through that steel giant?
Investigations confirmed that the iceberg created smaller punctures below the waterline and not a large gash, which were enough to trigger the tragedy.
The RMS Titanic became history's chilling testament to mankind's overconfidence against nature. Number 12, the discovery of penicillin. Yes, one of the biggest breakthroughs in medical history was by accident. What Alexander Fleming started in 1928 as a simple study of bacteria in London turned into a miracle drug that saved millions.
September 28, 1928, 86 years ago today, a day which changed medicine completely by accident.
Returning to his famously messy lab from vacation, he found one petri dish ruined by a strange blue-green mold, and oddly, the bacteria around it were dead. Instead of tossing it, Fleming took a closer look and discovered the mold was penicillin, the first true antibiotic.
This amazing drug, perhaps the medical discovery of the war.
He couldn't even purify it at first, but decades later, other scientists were able to mass produce it. By World War II, penicillin was saving thousands of soldiers from deadly infections.
Thousands of men, thanks to penicillin and plasma, will come home to their thankful families.
And just like that, one forgotten dish became a global cure. An insane twist. Number 11, the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. Actions always have consequences, but no one expected a world war to start from a wrong turn and an almost failed assassination.
1908. The Austro-Hungarian Empire annexes Bosnia. This ticks off Bosnian nationalists who wanted to unify all southern Slavic countries under one government.
In 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, paraded through Sarajevo in an open car. 6 assassins had tried to kill him that morning and failed. One even botched a bomb throw that the Archduke narrowly survived. You'd think that he'd end the tour, right? Nope. He gave his speech and decided to visit the hospital.
He gets back into the car with his wife and has Leopold drive off to the hospital.
But his driver took a wrong turn, right into the path of another assassin, 19-year-old Gavrilo Princip. 2 gunshots later, the Archduke and his wife were dead. Within weeks, Europe's alliances ignited, and in a deadly twist, one wrong turn triggered a global catastrophe that would kill millions.
Just 6 weeks after a man was killed by a single bullet, the alliances were triggered. Germany invaded France, and the First World War had begun.
Number 10, Genghis Khan gets snubbed. Khwarezmia was an empire covering much of modern-day Afghanistan and Iran. In the early 11th century, they were contacted by Genghis Khan, who sought to create a trade agreement and possible alliance.
He looked west to develop trading links. He sent ambassadors to Persia.
But then the disrespect began. A 500-person caravan that arrived from the Khan was captured and killed with the Sultan's approval, and further ambassadors that arrived to free them were also executed.
The Sultan had fundamentally misjudged Genghis Khan's character.
In response, Genghis Khan broke off his attacks on China and spent 3 years decimating the Khwarezmian Empire, killing close to 2 million people, or nearly a quarter of their population. The conquest led to the empire's downfall and was an important stepping stone for later Mongol campaigns to the west.
The extent of the bloodshed in Persia was without precedent.
Number 9. Japan wins the Russo-Japanese War. In the early 20th century, both Japan and Russia had designs on Manchuria and Korea. Despite the island nation being much smaller and seeking to negotiate early on, Japan managed to get the better of Russia in the ensuing year-and-a-half-long conflict. Given Russia's status as a great power at the time, the rest of the big-name nations were surprised Japan achieved victory. Its triumph not only opened up its further conquests on mainland Asia that would play a large part in its imperialism for the next half-century, but Russia's defeat also sowed the seeds for the Russian Revolution in 1905 and the rise of the Soviet Union. Number 8. The Industrial Revolution's disastrous consequences. The Industrial Revolution changed everything.
Britain needed a new source of fuel. Coal.
The The development of new manufacturing processes and power sources essentially created the modern world as we know it today, with huge changes in everything from technology to social norms. However, there have also been plenty of unforeseen consequences to all the innovations.
Watt's invention would transform almost every aspect of human life and drive the world into the modern age.
Easily the most harmful has been the increase in pollution worldwide, which has had a drastic effect on the environment. And while the standard of living has risen in some parts of the world, in others, the Industrial Revolution has only widened the gap between the rich and the poor.
Within 25 years, the majority of British people lived in cities.
Number 7. A slip of the tongue brought down the wall early.
This wall is built to be permanent, intimidating, and deadly.
Creating a physical barrier between East and West Berlin, as well as the East and West areas of Europe, was an idea that was probably doomed from the start. But the moment the Berlin Wall's downfall was secured was pretty unexpected. In 1989, the East German press spokesperson Günter Schabowski was set to announce an easing of travel restrictions between East and West, but had not been informed of the specifics before delivering the message.
For the first time, East German citizens can travel abroad freely. A journalist asks him when. He answers, at once.
Although the plan was to implement them the following day, Schabowski, ignorant of this, told the press it went into effect immediately, prompting a flood of people to cross, which led to the guards being overwhelmed, and the public ultimately dismantling the wall.
If anyone had told me I'd see this damn wall come down in my lifetime, I'd have said they were crazy.
Number 6. Terms of peace set the stage for more wars. The Treaty of Versailles was supposed to ensure that the First World War really was the war to end all wars. Instead, however, it sowed the seeds for more to follow. The terms required that Germany surrender territory, restrict its military forces, and pay costly reparations for the destruction the war had wrought. This fostered German resentment, which Hitler used to take control of the country and lead it into another, much larger war, the worst in human history. In turn, the fallout from World War II would lead to the Cold War, as well as conflicts in the Middle East and Asia. Pretty ironic that a peace treaty would result in so much violence.
Same problems we still can't resolve today.
Number 5. Gore loses, Bush wins. The 2000 U.S. presidential election was one of the most contentious and momentous in the nation's modern history.
When the polls finally closed in Florida, the results were just too close to call, which automatically triggered a recount by machine.
And though we all know that George W. Bush ultimately went on to be president, Al Gore was declared the winner of the all-important Florida by multiple major networks early in the evening, based on exit poll data.
Gore conceded, and Bush was awarded the electoral votes and declared president.
And ultimately, the election boiled down to the state of Florida. Controversy swirled around rejected ballots and recounts, but in the end, it took a Supreme Court decision to settle the controversy. Despite the fact that Gore had secured more of the popular vote than Bush, W had won Florida, and therefore the presidency. And this decision likely changed the course of American history.
Saddam Hussein and his sons must leave Iraq within 48 hours.
Number 4. Prussia saved by fanboy. While the 7 Years' War, beginning in 1756, is primarily remembered for being a conflict between Britain and France, many European countries took sides, and Prussia aided Britain while also seeking to expand its own territory. Things were looking bleak for the kingdom until Russia's Tsarina Elizabeth died. Her nephew, German-born Peter III, was a great admirer of Prussia's Frederick II, and Russia pulled out of the war and signed a peace treaty with them, saving his idol and the country from certain ruin. Without this act, Prussia probably would never have survived long enough to unify Germany. Peter's actions also caused him to be deposed by his wife Catherine, later called Catherine the Great, who ushered in a golden age for Russia. Number 3. Napoleon's return. As great a military commander as he was, Napoleon still lost big time in Russia. This allowed a coalition of allies to drive him to defeat, forcing his abdication and leading to his exile to the island of Elba in the Mediterranean in 1814.
Still a sovereign, this would be his new palace, where he was expected to spend the rest of his life.
However, less than a year later, the former emperor escaped his imprisonment and marched back to Paris, with few men to start with. Astonishingly, he managed to win every French army sent against him, growing his forces and retaking his throne with little bloodshed.
The news hit Europe like a bombshell. The devil, his enemies said, has been unchained.
Of Of course, he was defeated again a mere 3 months or so later, but how often does the defeated tyrant come back?
Instead, they sent him back into exile. This time, they took no chances that he would return.
Number 2. Arabs defeat Byzantines and Persians. The Sassanid Empire of Persia and the Byzantine Empire were engaged in a 30-year war in the early 7th century, one of many conflicts between the two rivals. However, no one at the time could have predicted that both impressive empires would be conquered by an Arabian army sweeping up from the south. Sure, 3 decades of war had depleted both empires, but they were still major powerhouses, and the Arab forces were the underdogs. Yet they succeeded through superior tactics and the conversion of their foes to their new religion, Islam. The conquest essentially ended the last of the Roman Empire, and Persian culture had a heavy influence on Islam going forward. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Hitler attacks Russia. Despite both Adolf Hitler of Nazi Germany and Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union signing a non-aggression pact, the former launched an unprecedented assault on Russia a few years later.
He was instigating a mental duel with Stalin, which over the next 2 years would decide the destiny of the Second World War.
Codenamed Operation Barbarossa, Hitler committed millions of troops to the invasion, more than any other force in history.
Hitler had finally made the momentous decision. A war on 2 fronts. The very thing he'd sought to avoid when he first made his pact with Stalin.
The invasion was devastating for both attackers and defenders, with millions killed in both combat and in murders by the Nazis. Ultimately, though, opening up the Eastern Front proved very costly for Hitler, as it brought the Russians into war against him and divided his attentions, massively contributing to the eventual loss of the war for Germany. Had he held off, who knows how the war would have turned out?
His decision to attack Russia signed the death warrant of his own dreams of empire and of European imperialism in general.
Which of these real-life plot twists had the most impact on history? Let us know in the comment section.